The concept of the Men in Black wasn't just an idea for some Hollywood writer with a love for aliens. They're an urban legend that have been spoken about for years. Whether it's mind wipes or alien encounters, the MIB are always close behind. And today, we're covering the top 5 craziest Men in Black encounters. And this is interesting. Number 5. Caught on camera. This story begins back in 2008. 2 UFO sightings were reported by employees at the Niagara Falls Hotel in Canada. Apparently, they saw a large silent triangle spaceship that hovered directly over the Niagara Falls and then slowly moved away. This can actually be backed up by a report in a local newspaper called Niagara This Week. According to the witnesses, the craft had a bright light on the front and a pulsing red light on the bottom, and it was around 50 feet above the hotel. A week later, a second UFO was seen. It was the same triangular shape as the first, but much higher and faster moving. Later on, 2 men appeared. 2 of the legendary Men in Black. Unlike many other encounters with the MIB, this was caught on a surveillance camera. You can very clearly see the 2 of them walking through the front door of the hotel. The staff said that the 2 men asked for the hotel manager and then asked other staff about the UFO sightings. According to the bellman at the front of the hotel, they were odd looking. They were very tall and were the same height. They were wearing the exact same clothes and had the exact same face, almost as if they were identical twins. They also both had very pale skin. The day after the MIB showed up, the tour guide who was stationed at the hotel said the 2 men said strange things that she didn't understand, and they also talked about the government and conspiracies. They were also pretty scary because they supposedly had no facial hair, which included eyebrows and eyelashes, and their hair looked like it was nothing more than a wig attached to their hats. They even had very big, very blue eyes, and supposedly didn't blink a single time. Number 4. The library. Once upon a time, the folklore professor at the University of Pennsylvania was reading a book on UFOs in the university's library. He didn't actually have an interest in the subject of UFOs, but it had been recommended to him by a colleague, so he thought he should read it anyway. Eventually, while he was reading, he noticed a leg and a shoe out of the corner of his eye, and before he knew it, there was a man in black, sitting in the chair in front of him. Immediately the man asked Peter Rodzowicz whether he had seen any UFOs, or if he was interested in the phenomena. The professor replied that he hadn't seen one, and he wasn't even interested in the subject. Here, the man in black became angry. He shouted that flying saucers were the most important fact of the century, and asked if the professor was truly not interested. Peter tried to calm the man, but he would not have any of it, and instead stood up, placed his hand on Peter's shoulder, and said, "Go well on your purpose," and then just left. Obviously, Peter was pretty shocked. He was frightened by the man and got up to leave himself. He walked towards the stacks where the reference librarians usually sat, but they weren't there. Neither were the guards at the front of the building. In fact, he was the only person in the library, and once more, he was terrified. He went and sat back down, and in an hour, everything was back to the way it should be, with people all over the library. Number 3. The Hopkins Encounter. Dr. Herbert Hopkins once worked as a consultant on a UFO case in Maine. One evening, he received a phone call from a man who said he was an activist in the UFO community. The caller asked if they could visit Hopkins to discuss the case, and only minutes later, he arrived. The man was wearing a black suit and a black tie, and he had strange facial expressions with no hair or eyebrows and very pale skin. From the moment the man entered Hopkins' home, his dog started barking erratically. The visitor questioned Hopkins about the UFO case, and then things got even stranger. The man stated that there were 2 coins in Hopkins' pocket, which there were, and then asked him to remove one. Hopkins held the coin in his hand. Then the MIB agent told Hopkins to watch the coin closely. Immediately, it began to almost ripple in and out of existence, before eventually disappearing altogether. According to the MIB, the coin would never be seen on this plane again. The man in black then changed the topic. He asked Hopkins if he had ever heard of the UFO abductee, Barney Hill. Hopkins had. The man had died not too long ago. According to the MIB, Barney no longer had a heart, just as Hopkins no longer had a coin. The MIB then gently recommended that Hopkins should destroy all the material he had related to the UFO case. Hopkins did as he was asked. Number 2. The Solway Spaceman. Jim Templeton took his daughter's photo in 1964. It was only his daughter in the viewfinder, so imagine his surprise when he saw the developed photo and there was a humanoid figure dressed all in white, standing right behind his daughter's head. The film was looked at by experts at Kodak and verified as authentic. Not long after the story went public, he was visited by 2 supposed government agents who called themselves Number 9 and Number 10. They demanded to see the photo and then questioned Jim about the event. When he said he didn't personally see the figure, the men became angry and stormed away, never to be seen again. The creepiest thing about this story is actually what happened even later, and is nothing to do with the men in black he was contacted by. Jim was contacted by 2 employees at a missile launch pad in Australia. Apparently they saw 2 figures that resembled the figure in his daughter's photo on launchpad security footage. The missiles that were at that site had been constructed and sold only 20 miles away from the field where Jim took his strange spaceman photo. Number 1. Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd loves the supernatural. He's been in Ghostbusters shows and movies and all sorts of other things, and he was going to release a paranormal documentary show all of his own, until the Men in Black stopped his plans in their tracks. During the taping of his show, he stepped out to take a phone call from Britney Spears. She was asking him to appear on Saturday Night Live alongside her when he noticed a black Ford that was parked across the street. According to Dan, when he tried to look at the number plate, he couldn't quite read the letters. It was all fuzzy. A tall man then stepped out of the Ford, stood there, and looked straight at him, sternly, as if it were a warning. Dan turned away, just for a moment, and then looked back. Both the tall man and the car were gone. 2 hours later, Dan received another call, this time from the team that he was working with to help create his paranormal TV show. The show had been cancelled. Were the 2 events related, or was it all a coincidence? Dan says he thinks the 2 events were linked, and that the man in black he saw was supposed to act as a warning. And though some doubt his claims, he says he knows what he saw, and it wasn't normal. If you've watched this video all the way to the end, I just want to give you a huge thanks. It means a lot that you've clearly enjoyed enough to watch it the whole way through. What do you think of this style of video? Should we do more top 5 lists so you can learn about more things in less detail, or should we keep doing our old style of videos so you can learn about one thing a day in lots of detail? Leave your comments down below and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. Of course, if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of our videos, and if you're watching on YouTube, click that all-important bell button to be informed of all our future content. And as always, that was interesting.